So you're thinking about buying or selling a property in Calgary, but whenever you go to start the process, you end up with more questions afterwards. Is now a good time to buy or sell? Should I be waiting for the spring market? How much down payment should I put down? If you're asking questions like this, you're going to want to stick around because in this video, I've compiled the most common questions that both buyers and sellers ask me when going through the process. Let's get right into it. All right, so let's begin here. And this video is meant to be kind of short, bullet point, right to the point. And I'm going to break it down into three different areas: mortgages, buying a home, and selling a home. And I'll start off with the mortgage part of it. And full disclosure, I am not a mortgage broker. I always recommend talking to a mortgage professional before viewing homes and going through the process. I think it is a full-time job working on the mortgage end of the business, and it can be quite complicated as well. So I would highly recommend that you do speak to a mortgage broker. But in this video, I will give you kind of like the basic idea of what to look out for. And the first point here is the down payment. How much down payment do I need to buy a home in Calgary? Now in Canada, you can do 5% down from 0 to 500,000, and then over 500,000 to 1 million, you have to put 10% down. So if you are buying a property in the average price ranges in Calgary, about 750-ish for a single family home, your down payment will be a little bit higher than 5% down. So it's kind of a staggered system right now. And I'll also mention, if you put 20% down, you can avoid the CMHC mortgage insurance, which I'll talk about as we go forward here. Point number 2, what is the minimum credit score to buy a property in Calgary? Now, this is, again, is a mortgage broker question, but I would say minimum, you want to be over like 650. The higher your credit score, the less debt, the more income. It's easier to be approved, obviously, and your interest rates should be lower too. If you have a lower credit score, it's not impossible, but your interest rate might be higher. And again, this is why you want to talk to a mortgage broker, because it's not just about your credit score. It's about your income, your debt, your assets. They take everything into consideration, so it's not just about your credit. And number 3, how much can I be approved for based on my income? Now, I've always used kind of the rough guideline that it's about 4 times your annual income is a rough kind of limit of what you could be approved for. Now, again, this is definitely a mortgage broker question because they will look at your debt servicing ratios, your income, your assets, your debts, and your credit score, and they'll spit out a number for you. So it's not just an easy answer to spit out. There's lots to consider. And one thing to consider, if you are thinking of buying a car, I would do it after you buy a property because a car payment takes away a huge amount of your approval, and it really hurts your chances of buying a property, especially if you're buying like a big truck with like $1,000 a month car payment. That really does affect your approval. Next point, how long does a pre-approval last? From what I've seen, it's about 3 to 4 months on average. I think every lender is different. And the next point, should I be pre-approved before buying a property or even looking at homes? And I would say 100% yes, because you could be wasting your time if you don't do this. You could be looking at properties. You might see 20 or 30 properties, write an offer just to find out that your credit score is shot and that it's not going to work. So you could be wasting a lot of your time and my time as well, and the seller's time. So I think it just makes sense in so many different ways. And you might also be approved for a higher amount than what you were thinking. You could be looking at properties at 400,000, but you could actually get approved for more, and that might fit your plans better. Number 6, what documents do lenders need to get you a mortgage? And this one's simple: employment letter, T4s, NOAs for self-employed people, a job letter, bank statements, your ID information. Just stuff like that is pretty common during the mortgage process. Number 7, should I get a fixed mortgage or a variable rate mortgage? So a fixed mortgage obviously is more stable and predictable. You know exactly what your payment's going to be into the future. A variable rate might work for you if you're thinking the rates are going to come down. So obviously the rates came down, your payment would be less. So it just depends on your timeline and your risk tolerance. And one thing that I will say is that our interest rates are actually quite low right now in Canada. If we're comparing to the COVID years, sure, those were ultra low, but that's a bit of an anomaly, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I think our rates are pretty low right now, and they're probably going to stay where they're at. So I don't think there's much advantage at the moment by getting a variable rate. I'd probably go with a fixed rate, but that's just my opinion. Feel free to do your own due diligence on this matter, though. Next point, how do mortgage penalties work? So say that you have like a 5-year mortgage and you want to sell your property 3 years into it, so you're breaking the term. And the bank will typically have a charge for that or a penalty. Sometimes it's only 3 months of interest, which is not terrible. And other times it's like a huge payment. I can recall back in like 2016, it was very important for anyone who's listing a property to check on the bank payout penalties because the prices were going down. There wasn't too much equity for a lot of people. And the bank payout penalty could be quite steep too. And it could actually cancel the transaction. There wasn't enough money to pay everything. So it's definitely something to talk to your lender about and talk to your real estate agent about to make sure that all the numbers make sense. Next point, how does porting a mortgage work? So basically you're just transferring your mortgage and your terms over to the next property. And this helps you avoid the bank payout penalty. So it's actually quite simple to explain this. And most banks will have no problem sorting this out for you. Which leads me to my next point. Can you buy and sell a property at the same time and transfer over your mortgage? And the answer is yes, you can do this. So you can list your property for sale. You could write an offer on the next property, and it could be subject to the sale of your property. So it could have a financing condition, home inspection, and the condition to sell your property. And we do these all the time in Calgary, so it's not that strange. In a very hot market, this will be difficult. But in a balanced market or a buyer's market, you see these quite often, and it shouldn't be too difficult to do this. And while you're doing this, you could look at bridge financing, where you hold both properties for a short period. Maybe you hold both properties for like 2 or 3 days to help with the transition from one home to the other. So it's definitely possible to buy and sell at the same time and port your mortgage to the next home. And the last point on mortgages, can you buy a property with zero down? So a zero down mortgage. And if you talk to lots of different lenders and banks, they will tell you no, it's impossible. There's no program for this. They would be wrong. I've done maybe 10 to 15 transactions this way. There are some programs, it's called the flex down mortgage. So basically how it works is the lender will get you approved for the mortgage, and they'll also get you approved for a line of credit to be used as the down payment. It is a bit difficult to be approved for because it is 100% financing. You have to have good credit and good employment. But if you have those two things, but you just don't have the down payment saved up yet, this could be an excellent option to get into the market. And this program does exist. So if the broker or the bank is telling you it doesn't, find a new one or ask me, because I can definitely direct you to someone that can help with this. And I should also say, if you're out there watching this and you could use some help buying or selling in Calgary or relocating to the city, I would love to be a resource and to help you out. I've got some free resources for you in the pinned comment, buyer's guide, seller's guide, relocation guide. You can call, text, or email me and I will get it and get back to you. All right, moving along, let's go into the buying section now. And the first point here, where are the best neighborhoods in Calgary? I get this question all the time. Now, this is a tough one. Calgary is a huge city. There's 4 distinct quadrants, and overall, it's a very nice city to live in, and you can find nice neighborhoods in every quadrant of Calgary. And one thing that I'll mention, if you want to buy a property in Calgary, you don't want to break the bank, but you want to live, kind of in a very good, convenient neighborhood, I would look at areas like Banff Trail, Capitol Hill, Mount Pleasant, Brentwood, Charleswood. These areas are above average in price, but they're not super expensive, and they have tons of schools. They're very convenient. They're close to downtown, but they're also residential enough where it's quiet. I quite like this part of Calgary. I think it fits a lot of boxes for a lot of people. And if I was coming to Calgary, I would definitely look into these areas. Number 2, which neighborhoods are the safest in Calgary? I get this one quite often too, and overall I would say Calgary is definitely a very safe city. I've never had any issues myself. I think if you're not looking for trouble in Calgary, you're probably not going to find it. And if I'm being honest, and I'm born and raised here, I will go to any part of Calgary at any time, and I don't really worry about my safety. Just use your common sense, and you'll have no problems at all in Calgary for the most part, unless you're looking for trouble. And the next point, should I buy in Calgary or the surrounding towns? Now, for the most part, these areas, they're not that far from Calgary. Like, you could be in downtown Calgary and be in downtown Cochrane in like 30 minutes. So it's not a huge commute. I think Calgary to Strathmore is like 45 minutes. Calgary to Airdrie is less than half an hour, depending on traffic. So they're not terribly far. And most of these towns nowadays have most of the amenities that you need to survive. I think it would be a bit tough if you were living in, say, Airdrie and working downtown Calgary. That wouldn't be too much fun, but lots of people do it. That commute gets a bit old, especially in the wintertime. I think Calgary to Chestermere, that's not too bad. That's like 20 minutes or so. Calgary to Okotoks, I think that's over half an hour. So they're close, but it would still get a bit annoying doing that commute every single day. Next point, is it a good time to buy in Calgary right now? And the answer to this, it is late November 2025. I would say yes and no. If you are a condo buyer, I think the condo prices will probably come down for the next year or so. It's hard to predict this. It's like predicting the stock market. But right now, there's lots of inventory in the condo market. There's lots of purpose-built rentals, lots of townhouses. There's just lots of inventory, which is dragging down the prices. So for the condo market, I would still buy if you had to. It's better than renting. But I wouldn't expect the prices to skyrocket anytime soon for the condo market. For the single family market, it's more of a flat market. I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't be trying to time the market if you're buying a single family home. I would just pull the trigger and buy something. It's too hard to predict the ups and downs. I think overall it's still a pretty good market. There's lots of buyers out there, lots of inventory. I think going forward it's going to be a balanced market. I also think the interest rates are going to be very stable. So I'd have no problems at all buying a single family property in Calgary right now. So for condos, the prices are going down on average. For single family properties, they're staying flat. Next point, will inventory increase soon? And the answer is definitely yes. So what happens right now, again, it's late November. The slowest time of the year is like December, January into like mid-February. It's winter, it's cold, it's dark. But once the spring starts approaching, like late February, March, you'll see lots of sellers list their properties. It's just the usual surge in inventory at that time of the year. And lots of buyers come out as well. And they write the offer in the wintertime and they want to have a spring possession. For the most part, that's the busiest time of the year. But you can buy or sell properties any time of the year in Calgary. It's just that's the busiest period if you are a buyer. Now, it can be tough if you're a buyer. I wouldn't be necessarily waiting for the spring market. There might be more inventory, but there's also more competition from other buyers out there. Next point, are bidding wars still common? And the easy answer is no. It depends, though. If you list your property very well and it's a good home in a good neighborhood, you can still get yourself into bidding wars in any market. It could be a buyer's market, and you could still find yourself getting multiple offers if you do everything right. The issue during the last few years is that Calgary was so hot, there were so many people coming from different provinces, and there weren't enough homes for the amount of buyers. So basically everything was getting bidding wars, but that has ended. There's a lot more inventory now. It's a bit more of a balanced market. So the answer is yes and no, but for the most part, I would say the bidding war era is probably over for the next few years, unless something drastic happens. And the next point, what are the steps to buying a property in Calgary? Now, real simple. You want to get pre-approved first. You want to find a good real estate agent. You want that agent to pre-qualify you and to help narrow down the property search. Don't look at single-family properties in Calgary under 600,000. That's too broad. You're going to be all over the place. You want to narrow it down to your top quadrant of the city, your top neighborhood, style of property, beds, baths, age, basically everything to get maybe your top 10 properties. Once you have your top properties, I would view them all at once if possible, write an offer. Usually it's conditional on a home inspection, financing condition, could be a condo document review. The conditional period might take like 10 days or so. Once all conditions are removed, you have to waive your conditions. At that point, the property is sold. And then the next step will be to hire a lawyer to help close the transaction. Those are the very basic steps to buying a property. I've got videos specifically on this topic in more detail, and you can view that video by clicking the link that you see. Next point, do I have to hire a realtor to buy a property in Calgary? And the answer is no, but a better question is, why would you do this? So typically the seller pays the commission, and on the buying end, it's free for that buyer to work with an agent. So this person will take you around, show you all the different properties, make sure everything is done correctly, and there's no charge to that buyer. So you could do it, but the better question is, why would you? Next point, how long does it take to buy a property? So a good rule of thumb in real estate, and I'll go back to the listing process. So say you list a property for sale. In a normal market, it takes about 30 days to sell the home. That includes the pending period, which usually is like 10 days for financing, home inspection. And then once those conditions are removed, most buyers want anywhere from 1 to 3 months to move into the property. So it's generally like a 3-month cycle business. Now that's just like a generic rule, but you could find a property today that's vacant. You could write an offer on it, and it might be 10 days during the conditional phase, and you could move into the property in the same month. As long as the lawyers have enough time to do their paperwork on the back end of it, you could move in fairly quickly if you find the right property. And some sellers are also highly motivated, and they have no problems at all vacating in less than 30 days. So it just depends on the situation. Overall, it's a 3-month cycle business, but you can find some people that want to move within a month. And the next point, how much should I offer on a property? So I'll go back to the listing process, and with a seller, I'll tell them this is what's active, this is what's conditionally sold, this is what is actually sold. And I'll tell them you should list at this price, expect offers in this price. In theory, it should be very easy. But in practice, it can be a bit difficult. You do see buyers that do write some lowball offers, but for the most part, they don't really go too far. I think if you list your property correctly, you'll find the right buyers out there who are more reasonable. On average, the last time I checked, the list price to sales price ratio was like 97.5% of lists. This can vary. The last couple of years, there's actually over list price on average. But in the worst markets, I think it was like 96%, 97%. Next up, what happens at a home inspection? Now, this is a good question, and the inspector checks basically everything. The structure, the mechanical, the plumbing, the electrical, the roof, the cosmetic things, the appliances, absolutely everything. And they cost about $500 or so, and it's definitely worth it. They also check for water, like those water cameras. Sometimes they'll do like the mold spores. Mold is not a huge issue in Calgary being so dry, but they do have that capability. I think it's definitely worth it. It's one of your largest investments, and you should make sure that you fully understand the condition of the property. Next up, how much are closing costs in Calgary? Now, the good thing about Alberta is we don't have a land transfer tax out here like other provinces in Canada. So it's cheaper from that perspective. And I used to say a lawyer cost about $1,500, but now those prices have gone up. I think the province of Alberta raised their fees. So I would budget for like $2,500 to $3,000 now for legal fees. It kind of sucks they've raised the fees, but out of our control. But for the most part, it's still cheaper than most provinces in Canada. Next up, what do condo fees cover in general? So that's a good question. And for the most part, condo fees cover everything except for electricity. Now, there's the odd building that does have electricity as part of the plan, but that's pretty rare. I'd say less than 10% have that. So they do cover heat, water, insurance, common area maintenance, snow removal, junk, garbage. I think I mentioned heat. So basically everything but electricity. Most condos are structured this way in Calgary. Next point, are brand new properties better than older homes in mature neighborhoods? This just comes down to your preference. Now, I like the older parts of Calgary, the mature areas. I like the bigger trees, the back alleys, the wider lots. There's more parking. But that's just my preference. The good thing about Calgary is that there are huge amounts of land where we can build forever, basically. And you can find some very affordable properties. The catch is they're usually like way out in the suburbs. And for example, I just sold a property way up north of Evanston, the deep north central part of the city. And it was a standalone single-family detached property for like $580. So that's great affordability, a very nice property, brand new, under full warranty, and at a fraction of the cost that you can buy that kind of home in Vancouver or Toronto. Actually, that home in Vancouver would be like $2 or $3 million probably. So there's huge savings if you come to Alberta from other provinces, and we have lots of land to build on still. Next up, is Calgary a good place to live for families? And I get this one quite often, and I do think that Calgary is one of the most family-friendly cities in the entire country. There's a huge amount of schools here. There's lots of park space. We have 2 rivers. We've got just dog parks everywhere. Very safe, very family-friendly, and it's also more affordable compared to Southern Ontario or British Columbia. So I think it has a lot going for it, and it's definitely a very family-friendly and safe city. Next point, how much are utilities in the wintertime? Now, this depends on the size of the property, how old the property is, and how big your family is too. So I can't just spit out a number, but I would say for like a smaller detached property, like your 1,000 square foot bungalow, maybe in the dead of winter, maybe that bill is like $400 per month, maybe a little bit higher. But for a huge home, this could be even higher. So it just depends again on the size, the age, and how big your family is. Moving along, what is the difference between the assessed value and the market value? So assessed value is the figure that the city uses to figure out the tax on the property. And they have some calculation and they spit out a number, and that's the assessed value. Now, sometimes it's accurate, other times it's way off. I've seen properties that are plus or minus $200,000 from assessed value to actual market value. And market value is what a buyer is actually going to pay for the property. So the market value is different because the buyer has options. They're not just going to buy the property because the city thinks it's worth this amount. They can look at as many properties as need be, and they'll factor in the renovations, location, etc., and make an offer based on what they think the true value is. And moving along, how does the days on the market affect buying strategy? So this is definitely key for sellers here too. If it's a brand new listing and is priced well, the buyers are going to put their best foot forward because they're scared they're going to lose out. So that's why the days of the market matters. If it's been on the market for a long time and there's lots of price reductions, now the buyers are in charge and they feel like they're doing you a favor. They're not really worried too much about losing the property and they're going to offer less. So I do think the days of the market matters for both buyers and sellers. And the last section, let's talk about the selling aspect of the business now. And the first point is now a good time to sell your property in Calgary? I get this question quite often, and it's hard to give like a straight answer because it just depends on where you're at in the city and what product type that you have. So for condos, that's a very sluggish buyer's market. For single family properties, that's more of like a balanced market. And there's regional aspects, like Northeast Calgary is not doing well across the board. The west side is actually doing quite well. The inner city duplexes and single family properties are doing okay. So it just depends on what you have and where you're at in the city. But you can buy or sell in any market. It doesn't matter if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. You can get the job done if you have a plan. And next, are home prices going up or are they going down in Calgary? If you take like the overall, like the benchmark price, the total residential price across the city, it has dropped year over year, but that includes the townhouses and the condos, which are dragging the market down. Again, single family is more stable, but overall the prices have dipped compared to last year. And how long does it take to sell a property in the city? Now, this depends on how well you price the home. If it's priced well, it sells right away. If you overprice the property, it will take longer. But to give you a good average, it takes about a month to sell a property in Calgary under most conditions. And next, should I wait for the spring market to list my property for sale? This is a very common question. The spring market is the busiest time of the year. There's the most amount of listings and the most amount of buyers, and it's ideal for possession as the busiest possession is usually the later spring into the summer. So it can be ideal for those reasons, but if you do wait for the spring market, there's also more competition from other sellers. So that's one thing to consider, especially if the market's transitioning like we are right now. It's a balanced market. Some sectors are a buyer's market and prices are dropping for condos. So I wouldn't be waiting for the spring market just to have more competition out there. I'd probably want to get ahead of it if I was a condo owner. And that's just my opinion. The market, it's always working though. If you list your property for sale in like say December, January, there's lots of motivated buyers still, but there's less competition. So it's all relative. You can sell in any month of the year. It's just maybe a bit more ideal in the spring market. And how do I know what my house is worth or what it should sell for? Now, to do this, we look at everything. What's active on the market that you're competing against? We look at conditionally sold properties to see what buyers are picking. What has sold that's similar to your property, so same age, same style, same renovations, the size, basically everything. And we use all that information to figure out what's the ideal list price and what it should sell for based on the logic behind what's on the market. It's not based on what you want or what your plans are. It's based on what the market can bear. Next point, should I list high to leave room for negotiation? And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes in real estate. If you nail the price, it makes everything easier. Your property should sell faster. It'll sell for more money. And in a red hot seller's market, my goodness, if you nail the price, you will see multiple offers, bidding wars. It gets crazy. I've seen as many as 30 offers for some properties. In a bad market with falling prices, you could be chasing the market down with multiple price reductions if you overprice your property. So again, you want to nail the price. It makes everything so much easier. Next up, do I need a realtor to sell the property? And the answer is no. You can do it as a for sale by owner. I don't recommend it. There are lots of things working against you. I've got a video specifically on this topic that I just made a few days ago, which you can find by clicking the link. And on average, they sell for about 10% less than with a full service agent. So although you can sell it on your own, I would just advise not to because it's going to be more costly. And buyers don't like it, realtors don't like it, and it's very difficult to sell as a FSBO. Not impossible, but I just don't recommend it. I think you'll get more money in the end with the full service agent. Now, how much is commission in Alberta? That's the next point here. Now, in Alberta, commission is negotiable by law, so there's no set in stone number, but a figure that you do see quite often is 7% of the first 100,000 and 3% of the balance. Now, it doesn't all go to the listing agent. There's usually two brokers involved, a buyer's agent and a listing agent, and it'll be split 50-50. And then from there, each brokerage will take their cut, then taxes, then expenses. It's a lot of money, but it does get broken down quite a bit. Next point, how do you find the right agent to sell your property? And what I would say is important is you want somebody that's got experience. There are some newer agents that are quite good too, so it's not all about experience. You want someone that's full-time though. This is a job where you can't be part-time. It's too difficult. You have to work like weird hours, crazy long hours, be available. I think if you're working somewhere else trying to do this, it'd be too difficult. So you want them to be full-time with experience. And I think you want someone that's going to challenge you in terms of pricing. I think to place your property correctly is the most important thing in real estate. It's not all about the marketing and the fluff. It's about positioning it well in the MLS system with the right price. It solves almost every major issue in real estate. So that's my take on it, is you just want someone full-time that's good at communicating, that's good at pricing properties, and just thinking strategically. Next up, what should I do before listing a property for sale? And I would say just your common sense things. Good curb appeal, maybe cut the grass, get rid of the weeds, make sure it presents well, maybe pressure wash the front entrance area. It gets kind of dusty in Calgary. Inside the property, make sure that it's staged well, get rid of any junk, paint it if necessary, put things away. Just neat and tidy goes a long way when listing a property for sale. And in terms of renovations, I wouldn't go crazy prior to listing it. I think I'm more focused on neat, tidy, organized, presents well, no crazy odors, just your common sense things. I wouldn't be overhauling the kitchen or the bathrooms just to sell it. I mean, you might get a return depending on what you do, but odds are you probably won't get much money for it. It'll just cost you time and money, and the buyer might move into the property and make their own renovations. So I'd be very cautious when it comes to overhauling the property prior to selling it. And the next point, do I need professional photos to list my property for sale? This one's more for the for sale by owners out there. Sometimes your iPhone can take good photos, but I do think a professional, it makes it look better, it makes it look brighter and bigger. So you don't need them, but it definitely helps your cause to have good marketing, good professional photos. And moving along, let's talk about some of the elements of the offer here for sellers. So what happens after a purchase contract is accepted? So at this stage, you've signed the contract. Now it's a bit of a waiting game for sellers because the buyer is doing their due diligence when it comes to, like, say, financing, home inspection. If you are selling a condo, your job might be to get the condo documents to the buyer in a reasonable amount of time. But I think for the most part, you're just kind of waiting around for the buyer to do their end of it during this stage. As a seller, I'd still continue marketing the property. I'd continue to get showings if buyers still want to see it. But for the most part, just kind of waiting around. And the last two points here. What happens to a deposit if the buyer backs out of the contract? So during the conditional phase, say the buyer had it as conditional on the home inspection and financing. The inspection came back negative, they want out. They could back out and get their deposit back at this stage. Or if the financing was not approved, they could back out and get their deposit back. Now, what happens if the buyer waives all their conditions, they're proceeding with the property, and then all of a sudden they just change their mind and they're backing out? Well, if this happened, the seller could keep their deposit. So it's fair for both parties. And the last point, how much should it cost to hire a lawyer to close the transaction after you've sold your property? Now, I've already mentioned this in the buying section. Real estate fees have gone up in Calgary by the provincial government. So I'd say on average, it's about $2,500 to say $3,000 to hire a lawyer to close the transaction. Well, that's my take on the most common questions in real estate. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are out there watching this and you could use some help buying, selling, or relocating, I'd love to be a resource and to help you out. Feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, or leave a comment. I will get it and get back to you. And I've also got some free resources for you in the pinned comment: buyer's guide, seller's guide, and the relocation guide, all free for download. And I will see you on the next video.